Russian propaganda created some kind of other reality for the people. I think that people inside Russia, they live in some sort of illusion. They don't live real life. So this film is based on a juxtaposition of two parallel realities. On the one hand, it's the reality of the Ukrainians who live the war daily and resist the violence of the Russian invasion in Ukraine. On the other hand, we juxtapose those images that we see to the intercepted phone calls of the Russian soldiers in Ukraine calling to their families and friends back home in Russia. And we create this very complex puzzle. We combine those two worlds together in one film. And on the one hand, the form of this film is very minimalist and very simple. On the other hand, it was a very difficult film in making.
Думаю, что вот эту Путину важен народ, что ли? Земля самое главное, и все. Власть.
I was scared all the time. And even today, when I'm in Ukraine, I'm scared. And it's something that when you make a decision of staying in Ukraine, you have to deal with this every day. You live with the fear and tension and stress, and you feel like your life is constantly at risk, even if there is nothing happening around you. But when we were making the film, we put ourselves even into bigger risks, because we sometimes went close to the front line, or we went to these places like cities like Mykolaiv or Kharkiv before those regions were liberated by the Ukrainian army. And one time we were caught under shelling, and fortunately we survived, but we were in a very risky situation, and we all later regretted that we went to that place. But it's something overall that is unavoidable, and there is a sense, and that's the reason actually I show many different regions in Ukraine. We shot this film as some kind of road movie, and we traveled from north to the south and to the east of Ukraine. But in the film, you see all of these spaces, and you see all of these villages and towns, and they don't have names. We don't indicate specifically where it's shot. And it's because I wanted people to understand that no matter where you are in Ukraine, you are at risk. And it's not important if you are, in the end of the day, if you are 10 kilometers from the front line, or you are in Lviv in the west, because the danger is it's so nuanced. And sometimes you can be even in a bigger danger if you're far from the front line, but you live to a very important infrastructure object that can be a target of a rocket attack. So it's very complex, but the biggest point here is that the whole country is in war.
Вот сволочи, хохлядское отродье. Да урода, пипец. Нас давят, мы проигрываем пока.
Actually, when we started the montage, the editing of the film, we spent the first months only with audio, working with the audio. And the first cut of this film happened in the audio and not in video. However, the process of shooting the film was a bit different, because before I listened to all of these audio recordings, I shot the majority of our images. And from the very beginning, I didn't want the pictures to illustrate what we hear in these conversations. I wanted to combine them on a very associative level, without being like a direct illustrations one to another. And I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to immerse viewers into the environment, into the space of Ukraine and the war. I wanted them to feel that space and the time passing. And that's why from the very beginning as well, we made the choice of shooting the film on a tripod. We had very long static images. I think thanks to these images, people could have that experience of being immersed in the atmosphere of Ukraine. And also, at the same time, pay attention to what is being said in the audio.
Ты что, все думал, уже меня похоронил, да?
Да нет, что ты, все хоронить-то рано еще. Рано еще.
There's so much violence happening in the audio. There are graphic descriptions of tortures and killings of the civilians, and it's something that I could not, of course, see, but also I didn't want to show that. And even if I had a chance to show that, I would choose not to show it, because I think that showing violence explicitly and does not really help the cause. I think it's more important for the people to understand war from a different perspective and more profoundly than just seeing the brutality and explicit violence. I believe in the intelligence of the audiences. I think that no matter people's education or background, if they watch documentary films or they don't watch documentary films, I want them to understand my film and to live it, to be impacted by it. And I think that that goal is more achievable if we give space, if we give room for people's imagination and interpretation, and if instead of feeding them with facts and information, we give them room to think and reflect themselves. I really believe that people are capable of doing it, and that is my approach to filmmaking.
Вы свой народ защищаете, страну. Вы даже пошли, значит, вы не знаете, что вы там делаете.
Lots of my inspiration, in fact, comes from photography, still photography and literature. And but when it comes to film, I can definitely name Chantal Akerman as one of the film directors who really influenced me in both style and content. I like her slow cinema observations, her love for the subject. In fact, Chantal Akerman, she made I think she's the one who made one of the most interesting films about Ukraine. She was not Ukrainian, she was a Belgian director, but she made a beautiful film from the East that documented Ukraine in the early 90s. So it's one of my inspiration figures for sure. We knew that we wanted to film young people in general, and that was something maybe you noticed there is a little there are kind of recurring scenes in the film, because when we see groups of young people, and with this we wanted to show that lives goes on, that there are still young people, and we wanted to show that Ukrainians are not just soldiers or old people as it is often portrayed in the West. Yes, we once actually saw young people playing volleyball, and we started filming them, and then the siren started. It was in Mykolaiv, in this big industrial city in the south of Ukraine, and back then the front line was very close to the city. It was approximately 30 kilometers from the city, and it was regularly shelled. And our crew was surprised how these young people stayed and continued the game. And on the one hand, it's beautiful that this life goes on and people, no matter what, they continue. On the other hand, it also shows us how people became less sensible to the danger, and they don't realize anymore the risk. When they live daily under attacks, they become less and less sensible to them, and it puts them in a more vulnerable situation. This film is about a very specific war. It is about the Russian invasion in Ukraine in 2022 and today, because it's still going on. At the same time, my bigger goal with this film was to maybe have to create a reminder, like a caution message, to send a caution message to the whole world, and specifically to the West, in fact, that there is a danger of fascism today everywhere, and what we see happening in Russia could happen to any of us anywhere. And we as humans are extremely vulnerable to propaganda, and we have to resist it. And we have to find ways to resist it, and we have to be very careful with what we consume as information, whom we believe, whom do we listen to, because what we see is happening is really, really horrifying. There is an incredibly powerful, dehumanizing power that Russian propaganda has on its own people inside of Russia. I think that Russian propaganda created some kind of other reality for the people. I think that people inside Russia, they live in some sort of illusion. They don't live real life. And that's why when the soldiers who came to Ukraine to invade, who witnessed the brutality, who saw how actually Ukrainians live, what is this space, what are these people, they realized that what they were shown on TV back in Russia was not true, and they tried to communicate that to their friends and relatives, but they are so much brainwashed and so much manipulated that they didn't believe them. I think that's really interesting and horrific at the same time, and that's something that those audio recordings revealed to me, and something that I really wanted to show in the film, the difference and how much Russian propaganda is dehumanizes people in Russia.